This is Earth's most mysterious stretch of ocean. You won't even find it on a map. For centuries, no one could pin down its exact location. But we've all heard the stories about it. This is the legendary Bermuda Triangle. Shrouded in mystery, it has spawned some of the strangest conspiracy theories in human history. This abnormal stretch of water is widely regarded as the deadliest, most dangerous, and most deceptive place on Earth. So, how did a stretch of water whose existence isn't even officially recognized become so infamous? For centuries, this invisible triangle has seen constant shipwrecks and disappearances, claiming the lives of countless people who passed through it, or even flew over it. People have written books about it, made documentaries, and scientists have raced to explain the seemingly inexplicable phenomena in this treacherous stretch of water. What exactly triggered this string of tragedies? Why did 20 planes, 50 ships, and hundreds of people vanish without a trace? Is it just a geographic coincidence, or is there, deep beneath the sea, something more sinister and strange at work? Hello, Earthlings. I'm Lao Ma. I'm about to take you on an expedition into this infamous Devil's Triangle to see what's really happened here throughout history and how it became so famous. We'll also look at every theory about it, from Atlantis, rogue waves, and magnetic declination, to hidden toxic gases rising from the deep, and finally get to the heart of the matter, using a wealth of current scientific data to break down this most bizarre of regions. First, if you try to find the Bermuda Triangle, you'll discover it's not on any map at all. The United States has never officially recognized this area's existence, even though it sits right next to American waters. So where exactly is it? By unofficial definition, the Bermuda Triangle lies in the North Atlantic, roughly bounded by lines connecting the southeastern U.S. coast, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Interestingly, its exact boundaries have never been agreed upon. Estimates put its total area anywhere from 130,000 to 390,000 square kilometers, a margin of error of nearly 260,000 square kilometers. The area is roughly triangular, though possibly isosceles rather than equilateral, and with adjusted boundaries it looks more like a rhombus. I guess Bermuda rhombus just didn't sound as catchy. In the 80s and 90s, this topic kept plenty of tabloid magazines in business. However, all that content shared one huge flaw. They only talked about the incidents that happened in the area, but never mentioned that it has no fixed boundaries. Since different historical records don't even agree, trying to tally exact casualty and disappearance numbers for a region whose borders have shifted for centuries is extremely difficult. The earliest record actually goes back 5 centuries, to Columbus in 1492. Christopher Columbus led 3 ships, departing from Spain in search of a westward route to Asia and the New World. After 10 weeks crossing the Atlantic, they finally sighted land and landed on a small island in the Bahamas, which they named San Salvador. To get there, he was very likely the first person to cross the Sargasso Sea, the Bermuda Triangle, or at least the first to make it back, and tell everyone about it. You might think that's where the mystery began, since he did eventually share what he'd seen. Shortly after his death, his compiled ship's log was translated, and the first sign of anything strange dates to September 1492. Columbus's log shows something was interfering with his compass. That evening, the compass drifted northwest. By morning, it had shifted slightly northeast. A few days later, he entered rough water, churned by huge waves. Strangest of all, he described seeing on the horizon a light like a candle flame, too faint to tell whether it was land. The tiny flame flickered up and down, and for a few seconds, it seemed to hint that land lay ahead. Just imagine what it must have felt like hearing this 500 years ago, when the Americas hadn't truly been discovered yet, and most world maps still read unexplored. You can start to see why these stories, legends, and mysteries were so captivating to people back then. By the early 17th century, a British ship called the Sea Venture set sail to resupply the struggling Jamestown colony near the uninhabited islands of Bermuda. The fleet ran into a hurricane. The ship was wrecked, and the crew was stranded on the island. There's nothing especially mysterious about this on its own, but when the desperate sailors, clinging to the wreckage of the ship they once took pride in, couldn't help but think of the strange events that had already happened in this region. It's believed that this very shipwreck inspired Shakespeare to write The Tempest, in which he called Bermuda a cursed, disaster-plagued place, and that's how Bermuda became famous overnight. One of the strangest encounters happened in 1881. Legend has it a cargo ship sailing from Liverpool to New York, the Ellen Austin, carrying passengers hoping to immigrate to America, came across a ghost ship in the Bermuda Triangle. To make up time, the captain sailed into the storm-prone Sargasso Sea, the very location of the Bermuda Triangle. Right there, they came across an eerily silent ship, with not a soul aboard. But strangely, it was piled with valuables, almost like bait waiting to be found. The Ellen Austin's crew took the bait. To salvage the ship and its cargo, they decided to bring it back to New York with them, and sent some of their bravest crew aboard, preparing to sail both ships home together. But as they continued through the Sargasso Sea, they ran into a massive storm. Fierce winds and dangerous waves separated the two ships. The Ellen Austin lost track of the ghost ship, now crewed by her own men. Once the weather finally cleared, the surviving sailors began searching for their crewmates. Captain Griffin found the ship, called out to the crew, but got no answer. An eerie silence again hung over the ship. Several crew boarded to check. There was no sign of life aboard. Their crewmates had vanished into thin air, without a trace. But Captain Griffin didn't give up, and ordered a second group to board the unnamed ghost ship and sail on toward New York. For several nights, everything seemed fine, both ships making their way toward home. But when a thick fog rolled in over the sea, their luck ran out. The Ellen Austin stopped to wait out the fog, and once again lost contact with the unnamed ship. Everyone waited in near total confusion, with nothing but creaking timbers and waves gently slapping the bow. When the thick fog finally lifted, the ghost ship was gone entirely, along with all its crew and treasure, never seen again. It really is a great story, but did it actually happen? It's confirmed that the Ellen Austin really existed and sailed between Liverpool and New York, but records from Lloyd's of London confirm that its 1881 voyage passed without a single incident. Even so, strange stories about this region kept getting told, carrying on into the modern era. Throughout the entire 20th century, it really started drawing widespread attention. In March 1918, after a now famous tragedy, the USS Cyclops, a 165-meter Navy supply ship carrying over 300 crew and 10,000 tons of manganese ore for steelmaking, set out from Rio de Janeiro bound for Baltimore. After a stop in Barbados, it headed north and was never seen again. Even with distress equipment aboard, the Cyclops never sent out a distress call, and the massive search found no wreckage whatsoever. That's not all. In 1941, two of the Cyclops' sister ships vanished the same way, on almost the exact same route. In 1920, a passage in Santa Fe magazine put it this way: "It vanished, as if seized by some giant sea monster, dragged crew and all into the depths." The strangest part is, along the Cyclops' entire route, not a single other ship ever picked up any wireless distress call from it. Years later, tragedy struck the same waters again, fueling the claims that something strange was going on. Even more, in December 1945, 5 U.S. Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, carrying 14 crew members, took off from Fort Lauderdale to run a bombing training exercise nearby, with his compass apparently malfunctioning. The flight leader, what became known as Flight 19, became completely disoriented. He radioed the tower. "We cannot be sure where we are." 20 minutes later, for unclear reasons, he handed command to another pilot, and after that, Flight 19 left behind its final word: "We seem to have entered whitewater." Totally lost, the 5 planes flew aimlessly until they ran out of fuel and were forced to ditch at sea. That same day, a rescue plane with 13 crew aboard also vanished. A massive week-long search turned up no evidence at all. The official U.S. Navy report concluded it was as if they had flown off to Mars. To this day, no wreckage, pilots, or plane debris has ever been found. Things kept looking more and more suspicious. This eerie region wasn't just swallowing ships anymore. Now anything flying overhead seemed unable to escape either. In December 1948, a British airliner carrying about 30 people, flying from the Azores to Bermuda, vanished en route. On January 30th, 1949, another plane of the same model, flying from Bermuda to Jamaica, also disappeared without explanation. Neither plane was ever found, and this region's strange reputation, it all started with Columbus's compass anomaly. Yet there was never any real evidence or explanation, so someone had to connect the dot and give this region a name: the deadly Bermuda Triangle. This name was coined by American writer Vincent Gaddis in the February 1964 issue of Argosy magazine. Draw a line from Florida to Bermuda, then from Bermuda to Puerto Rico, and a third line back through the Bahamas to Florida. Inside this area, dubbed the Bermuda Triangle, most of the disappearances were said to occur. With hard facts in short supply, people ran wild with speculation. Unsurprisingly, it captured the world's imagination. In an instant, like a detective solving a serial murder case, every mystery got strung together. The article was a masterwork of conspiracy fantasy, hinting at dark forces working behind the scenes. Keep in mind, this was during the Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis, when conspiracy theories and rumors were rampant. It was also an era when NASA and the whole scientific community kept filling in the blanks, providing answers to so many of humanity's ultimate mysteries. Yet somehow the Bermuda Triangle became this tantalizing, unexplainable phenomenon. Others quickly jumped on the Bermuda Triangle bandwagon. A flood of books were published, many becoming international bestsellers. The biggest hit of all was Charles Berlitz's The Bermuda Triangle. Published in 1974, it sold 20 million copies in more than 30 languages. For a book full of reality-bending speculation, that's an incredible number. Nothing was off limits for him. Berlitz's theories caught on so much that when Spielberg made Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he had the crew of Flight 19 depicted as abducted by aliens. Berlitz tried to prove that the Bermuda Triangle was connected to the legendary lost city of Atlantis, pulling ships, planes, and people down into the murky depths, which, he claimed, explained why so many vanished. He also leaned heavily on the supernatural to explain what he called impossible coincidences, too many to be chance. For instance, one thing Berlitz fixated on was that most of the missing planes and ships never sent a distress signal before vanishing. He took this as evidence of alien interference, or at least some kind of supernatural activity. Clearly, that idea struck a chord with Spielberg too. But Berlitz didn't stop there. He proposed that the triangle might be an underwater portal, transcending space and time, leading to another dimension or an unknown place. He also believed this could be a spot aliens used, specifically to abduct humans. For Berlitz, the possibilities were endless. The wilder, the better, even though his methods were seriously questioned. Latching on to something we might not have all the answers to still grabs attention, which is exactly why the Bermuda Triangle mystery has stood the test of time. Just imagine, humanity has scanned nearly the entire globe, and yet this one tiny mysterious triangle remains. Is there really something to it? The truth is, we've actually had answers for a long time. Not vague, maybe guesswork, but solid, well-grounded answers. One issue that keeps coming up is navigation failure. We already mentioned Columbus's compass anomaly, as well as Flight 19's complete inability to determine its own position during training. In nearly every account of the Bermuda Triangle mystery, you'll come across this line. It's one of only 2 places on Earth where compasses point to true north instead of magnetic north, the other being the Devil's Sea near Japan. Could that cause compasses to malfunction and send ships and planes badly off course? Let's quickly explain what's actually going on with compasses. A compass needle is pulled by Earth's magnetic field, pointing toward magnetic north, a position that drifts slowly over time. Meanwhile, true north on our maps stays fixed. It's roughly 1,200 kilometers from magnetic north. Since the two norths aren't the same, the direction a compass reads ends up slightly off. That's called magnetic declination. There used to be a line where the two norths lined up exactly, and compasses showed 0 deviation. But long ago, people discovered that line was slowly drifting west. So when navigators pilot ships or planes, they have to manually correct for that deviation, or risk drifting off course. But here's the key point. The Bermuda Triangle has no special compass magic at all. It's just an ordinary geographic phenomenon, the same everywhere on Earth. While the 0 declination line once passed through the Bermuda Triangle, it has since shifted to the Gulf of Mexico, which makes the claim that magnetic declination causes disappearances there largely fall apart. The problem with the compass failure theory is that calculation errors can send a plane or ship off course anywhere in the world. It also assumes that the experienced pilots and captains passing through this region don't know how to correct for declination, which just isn't realistic. Not to mention, the vast majority of ships and planes cross this region without any trouble. You may have also noticed that these incidents, especially the ones at sea, almost never leave any wreckage behind. A reasonable explanation is actually simple: bad weather. As we all know, hurricane season passes right through the heart of this region. Just look at the damage this area saw in 2024. Some theorists believe rogue waves are why so many ships never reach their destination. These abnormally massive waves can reach 30 meters high. Rogue waves are real, occurring roughly once in every 10,000 waves. On January 1st, 1995, the Dropner wave in the North Sea was the first ever recorded by instruments, reaching a height of 25.6 meters. There's also the influence of the Gulf Stream, a theory backed by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Environmental factors can explain some Bermuda Triangle disappearances. The Gulf Stream flows along the western edge of the triangle at extremely high speed with a very powerful current, creating major challenges for navigation, especially for inexperienced sailors. Records show that in some stretches, the Gulf Stream flows faster than 4 to 5 knots, 300 times the speed of the Amazon River. If a sailor fails to correct for the current, it can push them hundreds of kilometers off course and can just as quickly erase any trace of a disaster. An increasingly popular theory, in fact the newest one in the field, centers on methane. Most of us know it as the potent greenhouse gas from livestock, but huge amounts are also trapped in seabed sediment. In 2016, researchers from Norway's Arctic University discovered off the country's coast giant craters, up to 800 meters wide and 150 meters deep. They believe these craters formed when methane, trapped in seabed sediment, was released in explosive bursts, erupting upward like giant blowholes. Even though the researchers made clear they weren't claiming any link to the Bermuda Triangle, other scientists, including Russian researcher Igor Yeltsov, went ahead and connected the two anyway. Of course, plenty of media outlets ran with the theory eagerly. In our view, it's possible, but the odds are extremely low. It's unlikely to be the main culprit. Methane, magnetic declination, Caribbean storm systems. It's clear this region can genuinely be dangerous for planes and ships alike. These are all reasonable scientific explanations for incidents within the Bermuda Triangle. But the fact is, these explanations don't actually prove the Bermuda Triangle is any more unusual than anywhere else. Once you set aside the tabloids and the jargon, and instead look at real aviation and maritime accident data from the past few decades, and compare it with other regions worldwide, you find a completely different story. There's nothing unusual at all, and that's the truth. The Bermuda Triangle has nothing unusual going on. It doesn't even make the world's top 10 most dangerous waters. A study using a maritime accident and pollution database, drawing on over 150,000 records from 1982 to 2015, found around 9,000 analyzable incidents. Of those, only 361 occurred within the Bermuda Triangle, just 4%, which suggests the causes of accidents there closely match global patterns. Its capsizing rate is even slightly lower, possibly because it's near major trade ports, where waters tend to be calmer. Even more interesting, from 1982 to 2015, within the Bermuda Triangle, not a single incident was classified as a disappearance. Shipping data through 2021 shows that across global vessel voyages each year, the overall incident rate is about 1.8%, including mysterious disappearances. Of 8,634 ships that crossed the Bermuda Triangle, only 2 such incidents occurred, just 0.02%. In fact, the risk of vanishing in the Bermuda Triangle is actually 90 times lower than the global average. Lloyd's of London and the U.S. Coast Guard have found that the rate of ship disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle is statistically no different from other waters worldwide. Over the past decade, global annual shipping losses have dropped 70%. The Bermuda Triangle area doesn't even register in the accident statistics. Over the past decade, the South China Sea, Indochina, Indonesia, and the Philippines were hit hardest, while the Eastern Mediterranean and Black Sea ranked second for losses. So what happened to the planes flying overhead? Turning to aviation accident data, covering every investigated incident from 1962 to today, including both commercial and military flights, you'll find the same conclusion. Even though the disappearance of Flight 19 and several airliner mysteries helped fuel the Bermuda Triangle legend, a closer look at the data show most accidents happen during takeoff and landing, mainly concentrated around the Bahamas, and only a few in-flight incidents caused casualties. The only recorded commercial airliner accident was caused by pilot error in bad weather. Since 1965, only one aviation incident has occurred over Bermuda. A Jetland Airways flight hit severe turbulence, injuring 1 person. As for the famous Flight 19 incident, the recorded transmissions show flight leader, Lieutenant Taylor, believed his compass had failed and thought he was over the Florida Keys, but a later ground analysis showed he was actually southeast of an island in the Bahamas. Instead of flying west back toward Florida, he kept flying east, further into the Atlantic. In other words, he simply got lost. Within the triangle, Bermuda is hit by a major tropical storm roughly every 6 to 7 years, with smaller weather systems affecting it far more often. Even now, in 2026, when we can track, forecast, model, and monitor storms well in advance, they can still cause enormous damage. You can imagine what it must have been like in an age without today's technology. So, a story will always be more interesting than the truth. The conclusion is a bit of a letdown. The Bermuda Triangle genuinely has nothing special about it. To be fair, it is one of the most weather-battered regions on Earth. So it's no surprise that over the centuries, a number of incidents have occurred there. But statistically speaking, the risk of crossing the Bermuda Triangle is no higher than anywhere else. That's really all there is to it. So, sorry to disappoint. No aliens, no time tunnels. One last question for you. If you were crossing the Bermuda Triangle, would you dive down to take a look? Let me know in the comments. I'm Lao Ma. See you in the next universe.